Early Learning Board meeting. Oops, I just got caught. I lost everything. Oops.
We go.
Thank you. Apologies, everyone. I got picked off for some reason. I will assume it wasn't a crew. Good afternoon, everyone, and once again, welcome to the September 14th Early Learning Board meeting. I've asked Dana Luca if she would share our mission to start our meeting. Dana?
Okay, hi, good afternoon. The Early Learning Board mission is to support children's academic and lifelong well-being by directing and supporting the EOEL for an effective, coordinated, high-quality early learning system from prenatal to kindergarten entry.
Okay, thank you, Dana. As we deliberate today, let's keep our mission in mind and uppermost as we make decisions and take action. All right, the only announcement to make for this meeting is that we have included public comment twice, but the second time under the category of our Maui updates and status. And the public will be invited at that point to speak again. They are not limited at that time to just speaking about Maui. Any topics relevant to the agenda can be shared at that point. So let's move to item number 2. Oh, I'm sorry. I need to do an attendance, excuse me. Justina.
Here.
Thank you. Aaron?
Present.
Kailani.
Eo, aloha.
Thank you. Megan? Ben?
Here.
May?
Here.
Bob, I think you're on mute.
Should I have a mute?
Yeah.
May? Yeah. I can, with your thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay. May.
I'm here.
Okay, I see you. I am here, Bob Peters, Napua. Napua. Mari? Mari?
She was still looking for the passcode in email.
Okay,
I can resend it to her.
thank you. All right, I'll come back to Mari. Carrie?
Here.
Thank you, Melody.
Aloha.
Thank you. Dana?
Here.
Rochelle?
Here.
Steve?
Here.
Matt?
Here.
We do have a quorum so that we can proceed to take action in this meeting. And the first item we need to take action on is to approve the minutes of the August 10th, 2023 meeting. The chair will entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second. This is Lenny.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote to approve the August 10th meeting minutes as presented. Justina?
Aye.
Erin?
Hi.
Okay, Eleni?
Aye.
Megan? Still not here. Ben?
Aye.
May?
Aye.
I vote aye. Napua? Mari? Carrie?
Aye.
Melody?
Hi.
Thank you. The minutes have been approved as presented. And we'll move on. Has Mari left another message in the chat? Has she gotten in?
I emailed her back just directly rather than continuing to CC everybody. So she was just confirming that that was the passcode. So she's planning on joining.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. All right, we'll move to item number 3, which is the first opportunity for any public comment as we begin the meeting. Is there any comment from the public community? I'm seeing nothing in the chat, so I assume there's no comment at this particular time in the meeting. So we'll move to item number 4, the Executive Office on Early Learning and their updates. And Yuko, I'll turn it over to you and your staff.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Next slide. So, hi, everybody. Thank you. Here's an update about family support. Next slide, please. I wanted to highlight that Kikyo Kaina held an excellent conference, Hele Pico conference, and the purpose of Kikyo Kaina, of course, is to educate children, strengthen families, enrich communities, and perpetuate culture. Through their home visiting program, Ohana can receive weekly home visits where they have the opportunity to grow in positive parenting practices, learn about their child's development, and build a loving relationship between parent and child. And what was really unique about this I believe it was the first time they ever held it in this way, and I was not really knowing what I was going to expect, but what was so phenomenal about this is I thought it was going to be like, how do you do home visiting? How do you do this kind of a thing? But it was not about that. It was more about just truly understanding and being with the people who we serve. And it was excellent in that in this one conference, there was Hawaiian spoken, there was Hopi spoken, Samoan, Maori, Ojibwe, and Spanish from a female representative. So it was so unique to hear diverse perspectives, but to have a true celebration of culture. And I wanted to thank Keikioka Aina for offering this event. It was very well attended. The conference room was full. So thank you, Keikioka Aina, for hosting this so that we can learn more about the people that we serve. Next slide. Going along with family support, I wanted to let everyone know that ELBL just posted a RFI regarding family-child interaction learning programs on September 13th. And the link is in hands. And if you wanted to just do a keyword search, it's RFI F24-033. And basically, we're just asking for input, things that you think ELBL should consider before we develop the next RFP for the provision of FCIL programs to support family needs. So if you're interested, please take a look at that. Next slide, please. So in terms of special needs and early intervention, next slide. I wanted to highlight that the Executive Office on Early Learning is partnering with the Hawaii DOE's Office of Student Support Services, Exceptional Support Branch, to host an early childhood conference on October 12th and 13th at the Convention Center from 8 to 3. And it's essentially for DOE personnel, community partners, parents, families, anybody who supports young children with disabilities. And the link is there on the bottom if you wish to register. It's also going to be captured here on the slides. But if you'd like me to send you this conference link, then let me know and I can send it out to you. Next slide. So we're going to move on to early learning. Next slide. So Ku'ulei is not here. They're currently setting up the convention center because we're going to be hosting our first PD day tomorrow. But I wanted to give everybody an update on our Executive Office on Early Learning public pre-K program. So you can see at the top that for this year is the first time we are having 45 sites and 48 rooms. And when you look at the total number of seats that EOEL can host, it says 922. And the math is not correct if you do 48 times 20 because some of the locations have a seat capacity that's less than 20. And these are essentially some of the first rooms that EOEL opened where we just were welcome into any space that different schools had. And oftentimes on our neighbor island campuses, the rooms are a lot smaller. So the square footage of the location is a little smaller, and that's why the seat capacity is less than 20. But out of a total 922 seats possible, EOEL approved as of September 1st, 1,067 applications. So this is the most that EOEL has ever taken in. And when I say approved, sometimes applications are submitted for people who do not meet the age range, or sometimes applications are incomplete and they're still in progress. So again, this is as of September 1st, but we do know that applications are still coming in. So right now, 73% of our sites are 100% filled, and 13 sites still have openings. But of those 13, 3 of them have less than 3 seat vacancies. So there's a lot of interest in EOEL public pre-K at this time. And when we look at the sites that have the most approved applications, you can see Honowai leads with 51, Wailua 46, Nanakuli 40, Na'alehu 38, and Aiea with 34. Next slide. So again, Ku'ulei and our pre-K team right now are setting up at the convention center because tomorrow they're going to host the first professional community day for administrators, teachers, and partners. And then you can see the other 3 days. So this is gonna be a new year because we're welcoming, new sites. And so there's a lot of learning. And additionally, this is the first year that EOEL has accepted 3-year-olds into the program. So there's lots of change that's actually happening right now. So I'm sure that's gonna be a great day for everybody to come together to dialogue about what's working, challenges that they're experiencing, and how to move forward together for the benefit of our children. Okay. Next slide, please. Next slide. Other system updates. So I wanted to give an update on our stipend program. And so this is very, very rough data, but I do thank our university partners for helping me to get this together so that we could at least present something to the board. You can see that some of these numbers are estimated. There's something extra double checking that needs to kind of go through. But you can see the representation of people who have, so there's a lot of people who've completed applications, but they don't enroll or register. So that first column is that they completed and registered. And then when we get to the award that's been processed, they remain registered through this drop period. And so now the funding is being sent down to the sites. And so we know that different things can happen from the time somebody applies for this application, and then to get them to enroll and then actually start and stay. We know a lot of things can happen between that time period, but we can still see that there's a lot of people that are still in the program right now. And for this semester, we will have been able to give out a little more than $128,000 of support for people who are pursuing early childhood education or some sort of career advancement for themselves. So I wanted to say thank you to everybody who's been a part of that. We can see representation from the community colleges, and also for baccalaureate and also graduate degrees as well. Okay. Thank you. Next slide. Just a couple of brief updates about preschool development grants. So for activity 3, or parent family engagement, the vendor was selected to develop the PDGB-5 website. The Embracing Your Journey workshops and parent leadership training have begun. In terms of technical assistance, we've worked with our TA folks to create a PDGB-5 state profile for Hawaii. And for year 2, we are working on a year 2 non-competitive application that's due to Grant Solutions on October 1st. Next slide. This is not necessarily directly to PDGB-5, but it is connected. So a lot of us went to the ESEPS conference, and we just got this news today, but ESEPS received an industry intermediary contract from the U.S. Department of Labor Office of Apprenticeships. And what's really neat about this is that as an industry intermediary, ESEPS will be able to launch, promote, and expand multi-employer registered apprenticeship models in critical industries. And this is really exciting because prior to this, apprenticeships did not exist in the early childhood space. And so this is very exciting for the early childhood field. And I can stop right there because the next piece goes into the legislative proposals. So how about you can stop sharing now, Kevin. And then if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask.
Questions for Yuko about the updates that she shared? I have one, Yuko, and I'm curious about the schools that are not 100% full, whether or not they reflect the newer campuses, and whether or not they reflect our need to get word out differently than we are. What's your sense of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can actually pull that up. So in terms of the 11 that just opened right now, so of the 11 that just opened right now, 2 of them are actually on the list of the highest applications. And then 2 of them, or 3 of them have 6 vacancies each. and one of them has one vacancy as of September 1st.
Okay.
So, there's 3 sites that have 14. One of them is a known, so one of them is a known space where there's a confusion between the application, but it's obviously been remedied because there's only 6 vacancies that remain there. The second one was where the principal told us, don't worry, children will come. And that one has 6 vacancies, but it had 3 just before there was only 3 children enrolled. At probably at the start of school, so they're up to 14 now. So they're slowly coming, as the principal said that they would.
Mhm.
And then the other one has 6, but that was a slow to fill site too. So we're not surprised, but actually encouraged that those are all each up to 14. And then just that other site that only has 1. But of the new ones, we have one that has 25 application, one that has 32, one that has 51, and the other one that has 20.
Okay. Is there any work that needs to be done around communicating more about the programs?
Yeah, I would say that our county coordinators have been excellent, and Kamehameha Schools has been excellent, and other community partners like In Peace and folks have been really helpful, in our homeless concerns liaison. Very helpful in inviting us to their community events. And so we've been sending out a lot of our EOEL folks to go and attend, and even Kauai, of course, to attend their community events, go and visit some shelters, go to their parent networking spaces just to get the word out. And so I appreciate all the help that people have given. We do have some extra, I would call them like generic banners. So our banners typically have the name of the school that it's for, but we have some, I would say, generic banners like, hey, are you interested in EOL public pre-K? That we could give out to people if they're interested in posting it on their property.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions from board members?
Carrie has her.
Carrie?
Yeah, hi, Yuko. That's really exciting news. And it sounds like the rest of the seats will be filled. Do we have any sense, as you're looking across the system, the impact that those programs might have on other community programs, preschool programs in those areas, to make sure that we're not displacing, but we're actually adding?
Yeah, so we have not gotten into that space yet to start analyzing what's in those areas.
So something we will hear
Yes.
about? Okay.
Yeah, additionally, like other data that we're trying to collect are how many 3s are enrolled in the program, how many 3s are still in diapers in the program, and how many children are in each room that are not from that geographic region, because they do give preference to children from that homeschool, but we do have many sites that are having students that are not from that geographic region. And what we think it is that it's probably along a traffic pattern, or which is en route to a parent's workplace. So those are some things that we're noticing, but we want to get a more complete picture of where people are choosing to try to find care.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Yuko? Or comments? Yeah, Yuko, I'm going to throw in one more just to make sure I'm understanding things correctly. With regard to the stipends, are the numbers we're seeing exciting numbers, or does it indicate we have work to do?
Well, to me, it's exciting. So to me, it's exciting, because a lot of times I've heard people say that nobody wants to go into the field because of pay or what have you. But when you look at this, there's a good number. So even if you look at the number of award that's processed, for example, like 51, it's very comparable to Kamehameha's Mu'o Scholarship, which is 50 candidates per semester, even though it's a little bit different. So even though the type of offering is a little bit different, we're still accepting the same amount as the Mu'o Scholarship. So I think that that's exciting. When you look at the amount of funding that's been expended, so 128,000. So I think that that's exciting, I think, too, because if we can keep spending that down, then, you know, I think that that's very promising. And I think that for each person that is able to take advantage of it, I think it's great. I think it's exciting because this can support any type of early childhood setting. And I think that that's what we're trying to do, is build a workforce across the whole field.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm not trying to
Yeah.
question its value. But I think when we look at the numbers, they're raw numbers,
Mhm.
and trying to put them in some context, particularly when you look at the number who have made an application and then don't follow through, which I know is
Yeah.
very common. I mean, that's not unusual.
We've heard that some people have declined because they're getting an award some other place.
Oh.
So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not in the set of continuing to pursue early childhood education. I think they're weighing some other options too.
Okay, okay. It will be interesting if we can keep tabs. There's a way to figure out when people don't follow through. Is there a barrier or is it a choice?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
even if it's one or the other, does that have any implications about how we present the program, the kind of planning that's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. So those are some of the questions that I have for our workforce specialists when we're able to hire them,
Great,
to be able to really track the scholarship, the stipend program and the recipients. And also to be able to do connectivity to a viable, like a job, the open vacancy someplace in the community, so that they can have a place to transition to and don't get lost in the interim and then just pick up some other job
Yeah.
just because it's more readily available.
okay. Thank you. Anyone else before we move on to the action items?
Kayurani has a question.
Okay, Kayurani?
Aloha. I just had a quick kind of clarification question, and it is tied to what you folks are just talking about. So I apologize if I missed this, but just so I'm clear, for the completed applications and enrolled/registered, that number reflects those that are going for this program specifically, or is that numbers that you're getting from the college saying that this is how many are enrolled in the program?
So there is that central intake for the early childhood stipend program. And so what that central intake tracks is the number of people who completed the application and actually enrolled into that into a program that's eligible. But for example, if you're looking at the UH Hilo one, and then there's a 0 on the end, I think that was a person that declined because there was some other kind of an award
Right.
that was
Okay.
available.
Yeah, so I was just wondering if it's even possible to get data, and maybe I'm just thinking in too narrow of a scope for Hawaii Medium because we're not huge. But I was wondering, like, if we could see the number, so we have a better idea of who's coming into the workforce, like the larger number, and then we can see how many are getting enrolled in the stipend program versus getting funding from elsewhere, so that we kind of we can anticipate more, down the line. Just a thought.
So you're looking at the number of people who take early childhood courses in general.
Yeah, if they're in a undergraduate certificate or whatever their degree that they're seeking or certification that they're seeking, if we had kind of like another column to see like where they're getting, just so that, because we know too that they are getting other funds. So I just want to make sure if we're being aware of that, for even if this program is able to continue, if we're able to suggest that it continues, we understand the impacts of other funding on it.
Okay, thank you.
Kevin, anyone else?
Ben has a question, and then after Ben is Melody has a question.
Okay.
All right,
Ben?
thanks, Yuko. Yeah, just a quick question about the stipend program, just more data related. Just wondering if there's a way, or do we know of the people who got the stipend, are they focused on preschool age or infant toddler? I'm curious to just kind of understand how many are. I'm assuming a lot of them are preschool, but it would be kind of neat to know, or just to understand if there's interest in the infant toddler group. So not sure if that's part of the application or if that's something that could be teased out or surveyed at some point.
I think that that's something that we can look into. Yeah, thank you for that.
Alright. Okay, Mel,
Yuko, were the new classrooms you opened, you were able to staff those
Yes,
easily?
yes.
And then you did mention that you were doing a little bit of tracking on the number of children that were still in diapers. Were you also taking children that were not 3-year-olds that were not able to go to the bathroom by themselves yet?
So, that's not a question that we asked, but that's a really good question. But I think it could actually expand to even 4s, right? Because we still have 4s that are in diapers too. So, but those are two, like how many children are in diapers, and we can split by age, and also how many children are not able to toilet on their own. So those are good questions, and that's not one that I asked, but I can look that up.
Okay, and then because I'm just was thinking that it actually is could be a licensing question, because the diapering is part of a different license, right, than the being able to go to the bathroom by yourself. And then that's a different staffing issue too. So those are good things to think about. I also want to ask another question. The geographic areas that EOEL classrooms are in, are those, I may have missed this, but were they chosen for any particular reason, or?
So are you talking about the new 11 that we received?
Yeah.
So some of the new so before Ready Keiki even came along, the process that EOEL took was to send an email to all elementary principals, and then they would gather the names of everybody who was interested, look at some data that we had in terms of access and opportunity, and if there was Head Starts nearby and what have you. And then they would rank them, make an ask of the legislature, and see if they could get them funded. And so when I came on, there were already 23 sites that were already identified from EOEL, and those were the ones. And then there was an additional survey that had gone out into the Department of Education, and that's how we ended up getting this whole total that we have now. So the initial 11 did come from those data sets. They got, there was an initial 11 that was mentioned, but because it had to time with the School Facilities Authority and the DOE facilities items, there are some that fell off of the initial 11, because, for example, some sites might have, we would not have renovated a room in a building that was set to be demolished, in the near future. So those are some of the facility things that we had to work out. So the initial 11 got altered just a little bit, but essentially that's where the 11 came from.
Thank you.
all right. I don't see any other questions. All right, Kevin? All right, let's move to the action items that we have under the Executive Office and Early Learnings section of the agenda. We have two sets. One relates to the legislative budget request for the 2024-25 year. And the EOEL is asking the board to approve an additional $507,352 on the originally requested amount for this year. And that increase is accounted for in two ways. One, the establishment of a statewide navigator system that will incorporate a multi-pronged effort strengthening families' knowledge of what programs and services exist, engaging in strategies for recruitment and retention of the early childhood workforce and raising awareness of the importance of early learning opportunities through media campaigns. The second initiative under this budget request is to add to statute to allow the pre-plus programs to operate on state property in addition to those currently on DOE campuses open to all children not eligible for kindergarten. This includes funds for a program specialist. So if you look at the slide that's up before you right now, you can see the two proposals. The first for the funding for the statewide navigator system, the one that's before you right now. Take a quick look. I think I summarized it basically. Can you go to the next slide, the second proposal? And this one is the amend the statute to allow for pre-plus programs, adding one FTE program specialist to assist with facility design, implementation, and liaising with the state and county partners for expansion purposes. So I'm moving that the board approve this budget request for the additional $507,352 to meet the funding demands for the two proposals incorporated the navigator system and the additions to the pre-plus program on state properties. Is there a second?
This is Justina. I second the motion.
Justina, was that you?
That was me.
Okay, thank you. We have the proposal, the action has been moved and seconded to approve the budget request for the two items outlined in the proposals. Is there any discussion?
Bob, this is Carrie. I'm in full support. I just want to comment that Site Savvy and AUW 211 finalized Keiki Central. And we're hoping to be able to share that with Early Learning Board in October or November, and hope that that will be considered as part of the navigation framework.
Okay.
It has a lot of bells and whistles and warm lines and call-ins and translation support, all that.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. Any questions for EOEL regarding the budget request?
I have a question. This is Lenny. I wanted to know, is there a break out of the fund request that we can see between the two?
So you're asking how much will the navigator system cost versus the FTE?
Yeah, I just wanted to see if there was a breakdown beyond the 500,000.
So are you asking like what does the 500 cover?
Per proposal 1 and proposal 2.
Jordana, do we have that visual somewhere?
I'm not understanding the question. What do you mean by proposal? What is proposal 1? Proposal 1 is a navigator system, correct? Kevin, can you go to proposal 1? Sorry, I don't know who's managing this screen right now. Okay, so I believe the navigator system had just over 400,000. The intention essentially would be to contract that work out. So it would include any expenses related to staff and personnel needs, as well as a media campaign. And then for proposal 2, the FT, I believe, is budgeted at 50 or 60,000. But specific details will be given later if approved by the Gov, because we would still have to submit the Form As.
Okay, mahalo. I just wanted to better understand how it would be distributed between the two. Thank you.
So, Giovanni, that answers your question.
It's a little bit clearer. Yes, thank you.
Any other questions?
I had a question, Bob. It's Justina. Yuko, I was wondering if you could actually just share a little bit more about the vision of the navigator position. Like I understand it from the reading of it, but I guess I also am wondering how would it play out for counties that have the early childhood coordinator positions, and what would that look like?
Sabrina?
Can I ask, yeah, sorry, I'm a little confused because you guys are calling it navigator position.
You don't-
I don't know. Yeah, it's not a navigator position. So Kevin, can you go to proposal 2? The program specialist position is intended for facility design and implementation. For expansion purposes, they're not a navigator. That's not my understanding of the intention of the position. They were more so to help with like the boots on the ground expansion efforts when we start opening up more opportunities and helping with like furniture and purchasing. The navigator system is just for lump sum funding requests that would then likely be turned into a contract that would go out to provide those services. So there's not a navigator position. But I don't know if you want to explain more the intention of the one FTE.
No, what we had already mentioned before, sorry, I'm like walking back and forth so that I can help Kevin navigate between what we're trying to talk about, but basically the navigation system is just basically to complement things that exist right now, because EOEL still does get lots of calls about how to do certain things, where certain resources are, what is available to families, and we want to be able to try to meet that need.
Okay, and so just to clarify, what I hear Jordana saying is there wouldn't be any request for a new position that's in EOEL to help fulfill this navigator system. It's more likely done through service contract.
Yes, we are not asking for a position for the navigator system. No.
Okay, thank you. Super helpful.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, let's move to vote on approval of the 2024-25 budget request, the additional $507,352 to develop and implement a navigator system and to provide a position for a program specialist to facilitate the expansion of the Pre-Plus program on public state properties. Justina?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Lenny?
Aye.
Megan? Ben?
Aye.
May?
Aye.
I vote aye. Napur? Maury?
Aye.
Harry?
Aye.
Melody?
Aye.
Okay, the budget request has been approved. For those two, for the additional request of the $507,352 for the two proposals presented. Thank you, everyone. We also have two EOEL initiatives that the board has been asked to approve. We will take those separately, not as a lump, because they are two separate items. Can we put the first proposal up? All right, this first item is to convene a work group and partners to develop an implementation plan for Hawaiian medium public pre-K under EOEL. The FCIL programs increased here, we are not asking for a vote on. It's just the HME, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So the proposal is to approve the EOEL's establishment of a working group to develop a Hawaiian medium education program for public pre-K. Is there a second?
Sarah, no second. I second.
Okay, the motion is made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I have a couple of comments. This is
Yeah.
Ku'ilani again. I do just right off the bat, I want to be really careful and intentional with the language that we're using. Is it in fact Hawaiian medium education or is it Hawaiian immersion? And making sure that we're identifying what we're trying to do. As far as I know, the Kaiapuni schools under DOE are all immersion, not Hawaiian medium.
You're correct. You're correct. So we've been going back and forth about calling it medium or immersion, and so we can change it to the term immersion. It's just that I think that we had heard at some point in time that where that term Hawaiian immersion kind of came from, nobody really knew. So we've been kind of floundering about like what to actually call this. And we want to call it potentially like a Kaiapuni EOEL pre-K, but Kaiapuni is actually through like Ohe and, like in the DOE, and we're not, it means, I mean, in Hawaiian language, it could be Kaiapuni, but in terms of what Kaiapuni is right now, we are not that either. So we're not really quite sure what to call this, but a Hawaiian language. So EOEL can host preschool on public school campuses in either Hawaiian language or English language. But you're correct in that we can use whatever terms people need to use, but we're not quite sure actually what to call it, whether it's medium or immersion or Kaiapuni or what.
Okay, I think just if it's helpful, there is an actual legal definition of Hawaiian medium education. So I'm pretty sure it'd be immersion, and then Kaiapuni also came out of Ahapunanaleo. That word came out of the Ahapunanaleo programs as well. So I think that's all open, but I just want to be clear. Right now, there would be no way for EOEL to provide Hawaiian medium education because they would be operating on campuses that are not only in Hawaiian.
That's true. That's true.
In addition to that, I did just want to bring up that I think a major focus of this would and should be HELDS. So, as it's saying here as an initiative, just to convene partners to develop implementation plan. That seems really broad to me. So I just would like to have a little bit more clarity on what that means and what the goals would be of convening partners. And I just want to make sure that we're setting ourselves up for meaningful discussions that help to establish things that have been in the works for years now. So, but exciting. Mahalo.
So, so right now, right now we have a seed-funded Hawaiian language preschool on a DOE campus. And typically what happens with seed-funded sites is that they apply to become a part of EOEL. And so knowing that that pattern has happened in the past for, I would say, almost all seed-funded sites, we're already looking ahead, because what we know is when you look at the type of professional development, the curriculum, the assessments, the type of support, the focus of EOEL English pre-K, you can't necessarily carbon copy it over, because what we've seen in schools that offer Hawaiian language preschool is that it's different. And so what we want to do is create this programming to be authentic and to not just be a carbon copy of EOEL pre-K. But there are also other things that we need to take a look at. So for example, EOEL has the specific teacher credentials, but there's nothing in there that says you have to be proficient in Hawaiian. When you look at some of the books and things that we purchased for our EOEL classrooms, like we don't have a list of Hawaiian language books to purchase for the classroom. So what we are trying to do is really set up the programming in anticipation of being able to host these schools in a way that's meaningful. So we felt the best way is to convene people who have language, content, and other types of experience so that we can put it together in a meaningful way and not just do like a carbon copy and just translate it into Hawaiian.
Mahalo, Yuko. Would we be able to, for the motion, would we be able to edit the language on that to immersion?
We'd have to vote on it at this point,
Okay.
and turn it down, and then we could have an
Okay.
amended motion.
Okay.
Is that what you're asking, Yolani?
I do. Could you read the motion again?
Because the motion as has been posited and seconded, we do need to take some action on it. So I'm going to go ahead and move the question and take a vote, and we'll see where we come. If the motion is approved as stated, then it goes as is. If not, then we can offer an amended version. That's the way it has to function as I understand it. So let's move to a vote. Justina,
Nay.
Karen,
Nay.
Iolani,
Nay.
Megan, Ben,
Nay.
May,
Aye.
I vote nay. Nakua, Mari,
Aye.
Karen,
Nay.
Melody,
Nay.
okay. The motion has been defeated as it was presented. Is there an amended version to present?
I would like to make a motion to amend that to convene partners to develop an implementation plan for Hawaiian Immersion Public Pre-K under EOEL.
Can you say it again a little more slowly for me? My hearing doesn't work that well.
I'm just reading off the slide, but changing Hawaiian medium to Hawaiian immersion. So convene partners to develop an implementation plan for Hawaiian immersion public pre-K under EOEL.
Okay, are you including to establish a working group to do that?
No, Was that included in the previous? Sorry, Bob, before we voted, I was hoping to hear the prior motion.
So you're basically saying to develop, the motion is to develop a Hawaiian immersion education public pre-K under EOEL. Do I have that correct?
No, it's to convene partners to develop an implementation plan for Hawaiian immersion public pre-K. Am I saying that right? Is that, I just wanted to adjust the Hawaiian medium to Hawaiian immersion.
Okay. Let me try again. To convene partners to develop an implementation Hawaiian, to develop an implementation plan for a Hawaiian immersion public pre-K under EOEL.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Is there a second?
This is Carrie. I'll second.
Okay. Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Hi, this is Erin. I apologize. I too was hoping to hear the original motion because I wasn't 100% sure what was actually the motion on the floor. If it should be the framework that we're putting, or is it just specifically the next steps? Because I think my worry is that they're asking for two things in their next steps. One is to convene partners, and second, to increase FCIL programs. And so I want to ensure that we're looking at both pieces, if that is the request from the EOEL. So I guess it's a question. Sorry, is my question unclear?
I didn't include that in mine because I thought I heard Bob say in the beginning that that was not part of what was being recommended. But it's unclear to me now too.
Yeah, just because the next slide I see is a second set of initiatives. So I guess I assumed this was the first initiative, and then the next slide is the second initiative on the CQI.
Could we hear the initial motion that we just voted nay on?
I'll jump in here. So I now understand some points of confusion. So for example, on this one about culture-based Hawaiian, so on the framework side, we will adjust that. I can't adjust the slide right now, but we can adjust that to say provide more culture-based and Hawaiian language. I would say provide more culture-based early learning programs on the framework side. But on the right side, so there's a couple of things right here. So now I understand how it's a little bit confusing. So for example, you know, FCILs, how we just put out the RFI because we're going to put out an RFP. So EOEL has money for FCIL programs. With the current amount of FCIL programs that we support now, we still have additional funds to increase FCIL programs. And so that's why we're going through that process. So I can actually see right here that increased FCIL programs via additional contracts. That part was, when I talked to Chair Peters, we took that part off because EOEL already has the capacity to do that. And we already have, I don't know, I call them buckets, but a portion of money that the board had already said in the past that it should go towards FCIL programs. Mm-hmm. And so we have that. So we don't need to vote on that anymore. So on the framework side, we're going to take out Hawaiian medium, and we are still going to already increase FCIL. We're going to try to increase FCIL programming on our own anyway. I don't know if it has to be voted on here because it's on the form, but I think that that's not something that we're voting on. So I could see under the framework, because SCILs don't have to be Hawaiian language, that's where I think if we're gonna keep it up here, it actually needs to not be there. So on the framework side, provide more culture-based early learning programs on the left side. Then on the right side for next steps, convene partners to develop an implementation plan for Hawaiian, what is immersion, public pre-K under EOEL, and then we are already going to try to increase FCILs. So I think what Chair Peters had asked for is the convening of partners to develop an implementation plan for Hawaiian immersion public pre-K under EOL. Is that correct?
That was the second one, not the first one, yeah.
Okay,
I'm gonna suggest there's too much potential for confusion here.
yes,
This needs to go back and be reworked.
sure.
And bring it back to the board so that we have some clarity. It's too hard to do from across the ways here as we're trying to do it. So perhaps some conversation with Giovanni as well, and to help get the language together and bring it back at the next meeting. This isn't an urgent piece. Anyway, it is an initiative that ELBL would like to do. And just to clarify, ELB is not doing anything related to this initiative except supporting or voting on it. It's not ELB that's convening or planning to do this. It would be EOEL. So let's put this on hold till the next meeting, and we'll ask for clarification and bring it back in writing on a slide so we can see it and vote on it from that perspective. All right.
Hey, Bob, I just have a quick question. I'm wondering why we're voting on something like this. If it's an EOEL, something that they're already doing or something that they're doing internally, why would this come to a board vote if it doesn't impact money?
It's a policy decision around how we're going to deal with the potential programs of the Hawaiian immersion variety that we're talking about. Right now, the EOEL is set up basically to do English language preparation programs, not Hawaiian immersion programs. And it's a policy we're saying that there would be two different types of programs. That's the reason, Carrie.
Okay, thank you. That might help too in the rewording then. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right, let's move to the second initiative. And Kevin, can we get that one? Or maybe we have, no, can we get that one up there? Right, we're not voting on the framework. We're voting on the next step piece, which is to convene a working group to develop a CQI, continuous quality improvement framework, and implementation plan across the early learning sector. And the EOEL is asking for this too would fit in the policy statement category, Carrie, that you're asking about. We're asking the board to approve this particular initiative of EOEL. And so I'm putting this out as an action item and hoping to hear a second.
This is Ben, I'll second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded to convene a working group to develop a CQI framework and implementation plan across the early learning sector, excuse me. Is there any discussion? Seeing nothing in the chat, let's move forward then to take a vote.
Hold on, Bob. Sorry, I
Okay.
do have a question.
Sorry, Justina.
I did want to know a little bit at what level the continuous quality improvement system is intended to better prepare or support the early learning workforce. And my question about that is because you could actually go in several I guess, tiers, right? Like, is it direct support around the actual workforce and their development and looking at like what's happening in the classroom space? Or is it up in the training, the workforce training sites or higher education sites that are doing training of our early childhood workforce? And I did want to know that a little bit because I see potential for duplication with like the work of the center at UH that Terry Locke leads, just kind of depending on where the CQI framework is situated.
Okay, I can jump in. And Jordana, you can add on if you'd like to. So we did have conversations with Terry about this, and it's basically like she has like a lot of the details, but what we're trying to also look at is like what does the implementation actually look like? And I think we're not trying to do the weeds pieces, but more of looking at the implementation so that we can try to create like a coordinated system across the whole field. So that's where we're actually looking at the more of a implementation plan. And then Jordana, you want to add anything?
Sure. So this working group would include UH, Terry Locke. So we have had some preliminary conversations with her already. She was kind of the one that was pushing for this to sort of happen and to ensure that we can have DHS and DOH as partners as well. So we have gotten confirmation that DOH home visiting folks will be able to sit on this working group because they have CQI systems embedded within home visiting requirements. So we're looking more at the systems level, but I don't think it precludes this group from exploring more nuanced or direct support to classroom level staff. But I do think the initial conversations are really more about working towards better alignment as it relates to quality, and then meeting programs where they're at, right? Recognizing that some programs might already be accredited, might be needing a little bit more support in accreditation, or some might not be interested in accreditation at all, but still are willing to enhance quality in the programming. So I think that's going to be the initial phase of it. But it's going to be an iterative working group. So I think we could definitely explore further options if there's a need for that.
Christina, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's helpful. I mean, I guess where I leave it is like it could potentially still situate at multiple levels.
Yeah. Mhm.
I have a question, Bob.
Okay.
This is Mel.
Mhm.
So I'm reading this that it's really focusing on the workforce, not necessarily programs, but the people that are just working across all of the programs. Is that what it means?
The terminology of the early learning workforce is more a collective term. So I think what I was just trying to explain is I think the initial phases will be more programmatic level, but it could also include more direct support to individuals. But right now it's something that we've been discussing with UH and DHS to better align system support and enhancing quality across programs.
So if we're talking about the programs, then we're starting out with the focuses on center-based programs, preschools.
No, it would be inclusive of all different types of settings. So we will have home visiting on the working group as well. So it's not exclusive to center-based.
And Jordana, is early intervention at the table?
We can request that, but at this point, it's up to each department to decide who they're willing and wanting to send.
And then another question is, do you all imagine that the CQI will include a training registry?
At this point, I don't think we can answer that question, but I'm sure it'll come up in discussions as a potential support system.
Are there any other questions? Nothing additional in the chat. Let's move to take a vote. Justina,
Hi.
Aaron,
Aye.
Eleni,
Aye.
Megan, Ben,
Aye.
May.
Aye.
I vote aye. Nakua. Mari,
Aye.
Carrie,
Aye.
Melody,
Aye.
okay, the initiative passes. With regard to the development of a continuous quality improvement system. And we will expect to hear updates on how that will continue as we move forward. All right. Now, from my point of view, that ends the EOEL updates.
I just have one more thing.
One more thing.
Can you just show that last slide, please? 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So I just wanted to take this time to highlight and say thank you to Ashley. So Ashley has been a part-time like half EOEL, half board office assistant, but she's recently accepted a promotion at at another location, and so we want to wish Ashley the best. This is going to be her last board meeting with us, but we want to say thank you for her notes and her hosting of the event and everything else that she's been able to contribute to our office and also to the board. And so I just want to say thank you to Ashley.
Ashley, we all wish you the best, and we will miss having you around. It's been wonderful to be able to call on you and to watch you grow into the position over the time. It's been pretty exciting. So we want you to keep in touch and let us know how you're doing. And we know that early childhood is important to you. So keep us apprised. Best to you. All right. Now we'll move to the item number 5 on the agenda, which is our update on the Maui early childhood status. I have put a particular order here I would like to follow in asking Jordana to share a bit about the EOEL involvement and Yuko to add anything in addition that you feel is important. And then to invite Kaina as the County of Maui Early Childhood Resource Center to pipe in, followed by board members and then any public comment. I realize that we are not following very well our time sequence today. So if we need to postpone the last item on the agenda, that can be done. This Maui conversation is really significantly important, and we need to devote the time to that as best we can. So Jordana, if we can start with you, please.
Sure, and just very quickly, I am currently deployed to Maui again to assist the county comm, so I'm managing the media line. That's why I've been a little bit frazzled right now. So if I do end up getting a call on the media line, I'm gonna have to step off to take that, because they had just completed a county press release during this time. But this is one of the things that EOEL has been able to sort of assist with. So as the temporarily designated PIO for EOEL, we've been deploying, the governor has allowed us to deploy some state PIOs to assist the county comms team. A lot of the work is still very much in the immediate disaster response. They are transitioning into cleanup pieces, but I've been able to work with the Gov's office, other PIOs, and the county folks here to help develop press releases, messaging, and whatnot. And I have been trying to wear both hats to ensure that any messaging that goes out keeps young children and families in mind. So I helped to craft some of the press releases about the hazardous materials. So I worked with county folks to ensure that there was information about specific materials and the health risks associated with it, and ensuring that the messages at the forefront did include not bringing children near burn sites and whatnot. We had also worked with the Maui County Communications team to promote some of those emergency childcare options that were established early on Maui. So the ones that were provided by County Kids and YMCA, for example, and getting it out on some of their communication channels. And then I had worked with Erin, mahalo Erin, in the early stages for vetting some materials and resources to be able to share out to families that related to supporting children, school-aged kids, teens, adults, and parents and caregivers during this time. There's still some materials that are being developed, and I'll be sure to work with the county to disseminate some of those or any other resources that might pertain to young children. We've also been working with community groups and stakeholders, including like DHS, for example, and CASH, to just monitor and keep a pulse on which programs might have closed. A lot is still unknown, so I think the DHS is keeping a track of which programs have permanently closed down due to wildfires. But there are still many areas that are restricted and folks cannot enter yet. So there are a lot of folks who are unsure of whether buildings or structures are still standing, and even if they are, what type of remodeling or renovations might need to be done, unsure of the damage, right? So the impact site is still off limits. The county is working very diligently with federal partners to do hazardous removal and debris cleanup so that folks can go ahead and enter a property, but that may take a few months. So we'll just be keeping track and keeping close on that. And just keeping a track on what schools have been impacted and keeping up to date with the Department of Education as well for any temporary structures or other options for kiddos that are enrolled in the DOE. But I think the bulk of the work being done around young kids have been spearheaded by Kaina. So I'm actually going to punt it off to her. And mahalo Kaina for letting me speak with you while I'm here on Maui. So we've been able to connect on a daily basis as well and sort of exchange information. So I think her updates will be much more aligned and nuanced, specifically related to kids and families. I've been doing much more comms on a systems level and helping out the county. But happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Yuko, anything you want to add?
No.
All right, any questions for Jordana before we move on? All right, I see nothing in the chat, so Kaina, are you with us?
I am, and I appreciate, thank you for letting me have the opportunity to share. And I'm just going to apologize in advance. My kids are coming home from school. As they enter the house, they may be disruptive a little bit in the background. Anyways, but I do appreciate the opportunity to kind of share and tell you folks a little bit about what's been going on, and from my perspective, how we are impacting things, and how blessed we are to have such a wonderful early learning, early childhood community to come together and offer their supports. So I'm sure you folks follow the news and the updates like that. I've been involved with it since the day after the fires. Everything from not knowing quite what to do with myself at first, so figured out how to go one by one family at a time that needed the things when communications were out, and made deliveries into the Lahaina area, to trying to better coordinate things and understand what our families with young children are going towards, to just kind of listening and hearing, what my bosses or from Department of Housing and Human Concerns, what they're saying and what they're seeing, so that I understand the next phases of things. So it's been quite the roller coaster. And what I want to say is I really appreciate the support that we've gotten from both I'm going to take my glasses on and off from time to time, but both from our immediate community and then from those supporters that have real strength in what we do and are located on Oahu or Big Island or Kauai, because they've just come together with real authenticity and generosity to say, we don't want to step on the toes, but we really want to help. Let us know what, when, why, or how. So some of the things that we've come up with and the ability to coordinate the asks, just from everything from an individual meeting an individual's needs to how do we approach this from the community has been really helpful. So one of the things that I'm frequently asked is, how are you? So I don't answer that one too much anymore. I choose to figure out what my spotlight for the day or the day before was and ask that back of others. Because sometimes when we ask that, some of our people, they really don't know how to answer that. Here, am I just going to tell you fine because I don't really want to get into the conversation? Or am I really going to keep you here for an hour because I'm really not okay? So if we get there, we get there. But oftentimes I say, hey, what are you looking forward to? Or what was your spotlight from the day before? That's, for me, a helpful conversation. I also choose to share a little bit about where my family is at with things and what they're doing. Early on, I had my son who was evacuating animals and making deliveries into Lahaina with the trailer. Had my daughter, the oldest one, who's now back at college, working at one of the evacuation centers in the medical tent with my sister. I had my youngest going to the food distribution areas. And then we had to get to the place of now, where do we get their activities and into normalcy? So my earliest is everybody is safe and doing what they could. And now everybody is at a phase of, getting back into what some of the things are normal. And I'd say I take that same approach to how we are doing things for families in Maui County. At first it was those immediate responses. What was needed immediately? What could we do when communication was very limited? And yet we wanted to do something. There was definitely need out there, and yet we didn't know. We didn't know how many were missing. We didn't know how many got out of the fires. We didn't know, it took family members 3 days, 4 days to get in touch and know that a loved one was all right. What we did come to understand eventually for our early childhood providers is that we had, I call it 11 licensed child care providers that were affected. Now, affected could mean that they had a total loss of their site, or that they had damage and we are not aware just yet of what the extent of that damage was. And that also includes our family child care providers as well as the center-based providers. So Head Start and Early Head Start. And then we had, so there were about 11 of those. And then we had some of our support programs like early intervention and Tutu&Me and Kikioka Aina, My Family Support Services, that were affected in other ways. They had programs that were support programs, and so some of them. So in the early days, these programs individually took an assessment of their families. For the licensed families, we had an estimate of about 200 and almost 40 children that all have been accounted for since those fires. And they also took an accounting with their staff members. So we did have a number of staff members that were connected to these programs, and I don't have the exact number right now, that did lose their homes. We also had, of those children that were in those programs, that lost their homes and also lost their employment, their jobs. And then we don't know for how long, because when I say lost, it's either they were affected by something that was damaged or something that was destroyed directly. Some of the things that where we're at today. So from there, I fell upon or convened, because I was getting so many ideas and how people wanted to help, and I really could not keep track of it all. So I convened a meeting of folks, and I call them my tier ones. So I have three. I have a tier 1A, tier 1B, and tier 1C. My tier 1A folks are those folks that are from the state that may have programs in Maui or that are able to offer their support. So like the Punanaleo, the early childhood action strategies, Kikioka Aina, Kama Aina Kids. So they kind of came together, Department of Health with Keiko, they kind of came together and formed what I'm calling Tier 1A. They could offer the supports directly to Maui, but wanted to do it in a coordinated and compassionate way. So, and then there's my Tier 1B, which are those that are on the ground and getting the information, talking with clients. You know, we have My Family Support Services, Early Head Start, the program managers from like the 22ME, and so it's talking with them and understanding. Those Imua is also in there. So those I kind of meet with more on an individual basis than having them come into a meeting, because their capacity is just exhausted. And then while all that is going on, there came a point, I think when we were about 2 weeks in, we also had to look and remember what we had that we want to sustain, that we can't let our thumb off of, because in fiscal year 25-26, we're not going to be able to you know, implement or impact these programs because we took our thumb off of the things that we were trying to sustain. Because during this time, we also had our county grants that were due, and they were not, that was a hard deadline. They were not going to extend the deadline because of the fires. So it was, how do we balance all of this? And so in that process, we came up with a whole lot of projects. Then fast forward to about 2 weeks ago, right before the Labor Day weekend. And so I had all these projects and just kind of keeping them, all these, and there was an opportunity for funding through Department of Health. And let me go back to this before I talk to that one. I want to say that leading up to this opportunity, I came to a place where I want to understand all these projects, but more in an effort to control, coordinate it and not control it. So, you know, there's a lot of things with the Maui Strong funds that Hawaii Community Foundation is putting out. And so it's understanding what are they funding and what's happening in our community because they're doing a good job funding, and what are those directly impacting families with young children. And then I also wanted to say that, you know, that our focus is on the children, the families, but the community as a whole. You know, it's really fostering resiliency to strengthen it. It's having an understanding and looking at the phases. I talked about what happened in the immediate, you know, then what's going to happen in the recovery phase, and then what's going to happen with us with sustainability. Also, it's really having an understanding, and I'm not sure who else is. Sometimes I'm in my own little bubble with early childhood with my partners, but who else is looking at the ripple and how important that is going to be. So I'm going to explain some of that as I talk through some of these projects, because a family that directly lost a home, or, you know, their childcare setting is no longer there. You know, they were directly impacted by the fire, and maybe now they are at a hotel and their lodging situation will leave. What that's going to create for us in the near future is what I'm calling the ripple, because really our Maui community, it's a form of collective trauma, for lack of a better way to say that. You know, it's not just the child that escaped in the fire, but it is how it's going to impact and how it impacts with the ripple. Because you know, from my understanding, one of the largely asked questions by the media is, what about the children? Why is the county lying to us, or the government lying to us about the children and the loss? From what we can tell, from what I can tell, and this is not some kind of thing, it's from what I perceive it to be, there are 2, possibly 3 children that lost life, that are under the age of 18, that lost life in this fire as we sit here today. Now, that's my best understanding of the situation, which really none of our county officials were able to give much more prior to this. You know, when the mayor was asked early on, I sat there and went, okay, so how would I answer that? I know we have over 1,700 kids that are in the Lahaina zip code. I know that we had this many programs, but how would I really get to who got out of these fires and who perished in the fires? You know, I couldn't come up with an answer for that. I was, you know, trying to pay attention, but I couldn't come up with an answer for that for quite some time. Because the honest answer on that is we really didn't know. That's not to say that we only had 2 under the age of 18 that perished in the fire, but how many now have escaped the fire? How many now have been displaced? So they are impacted in a different way. Some of the questions that we're being asked now is they're realizing that they don't qualify for the immediate FEMA assistance. Or the family that did have their house burned and now they're moving up country with their brother-in-law and sister-in-law. And so now you have 3 families under the same roof. Or they had a place that they were renting to another family that had young children. So they're gonna, you know, give it to this family that was displaced, but now they have to displace a family that was renting from them. And that family that was renting from them are not going to be eligible for the same services, the same FEMA money, the same federal money. That, you know, we have a different understanding of who is homeless and how they're impacted. The child that was living in the house that now has 20 people living with them, how are they impacted? They were an only child. They were one of 2 children. How are they impacted? So really, when I say that I look at everything that we're doing or trying to do from that, it's our community that had a collective trauma and impact. And it wasn't only the Lahaina fire. We also had the upcountry fires and how that impacts. You know, we need to look at the water and the air quality. How does this impact in our rebuild? We need to look at capacity of programs. How do we incorporate the displaced? How do we assist with funding for families who may need to put their child in care, not because they're going to work, but because they need respite, because they need time to go fill out the tons and tons and tons of papers that they're trying to figure out and recap. You know, how do we make this a community that's okay for them? So going into that with that perspective, and a lot of the people that we, you know, come from a really good place and have some really good resources and tools to offer. And I'm thankful that they do and that they bring them to my attention, because again, it helps with coordinating this. So that weekend prior to the Labor Day weekend, there was an RFI that came out, RFI that came out through Department of Health, and they were going to do a collective insert to SAMHSA. So I went to my bosses and said, because my direction from the bosses is, hey, we need to look at our internal budgets and see what cuts we're going to make. We're looking for the possibility of downfall, and we need to be understanding of how this is going to impact. So having that message, and then now it's like, okay, and what are we writing for? What do we need to collect or do from the county, and seeing where our capacity is at? So the bosses are really supportive of it, and yet we didn't have the individual capacity, because now they've been 3 weeks in, 4 weeks in at the EOC, 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week between the 2 of them, between 4 of them, right? So where do we have the capacity to really respond? And got the idea that they are supportive of what we're doing, but the capacity was not within the department. So I asked, knowing that I also had this group that was convening of my tier 1 and tier 2 partners, I asked ECAS if it would be something that they would consider writing as an umbrella. Now, it was a long weekend. This due date was due on Tuesday at 2 p.m. I wasn't sure which of our partners on the ground would have the capacity to write for our families with young children. So, you know, I'm hearing them writing for the fire department, and I'm hearing them writing for the police department, and I'm hearing them writing for the EMS, and I'm hearing them writing for, and I'm like, hey, nobody's in there writing for their families and with children. So it's worth a shot. So thankfully, Carrie and Jeff, and they all said, okay, this sounds like something that we could support. So an email went out to, I believe it was 32, 34 different partners to say, hey, will you join us in taking consideration? Now, some of them already had projects that they let me know about, you know, so I had a running list going. And then, but it really was to get early childhood and families on the radar and into some asks for dollars that we could put out. So I think about, was it 16 of them, Carrie, that came to actually help us in writing?
Yeah, we had 18 people that not only gave up their weekend, but then also gave up their staff's weekend because a lot of their staff were called in. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of them were like those that I said that came from the some of that background and backbone support that have the statewide type of programming. And the reason for that was because a lot of our on the grounds, the My Family Support Services, IMUA, MEO, I did connect with those directors and they were at capacity for what they were doing. Some of them thought about it, and I think one of them actually wrote for some of the projects. We didn't duplicate the project. If it was on our radar, but they wrote for it, we took it off of the project ask. It really was, how do we get early childhood in consideration for this funding? Because we need to, again, really look at our community as a whole and as at large. And we need to look at the ripple of that. You know, it's not just those that had a house or lost a loved one that was affected. It really is our entire community is affected by this in one way or another. You know, we are going to have to do a lot of these poor babies. These are our COVID babies, and now they are our fire babies. I mean, it's just how much resiliency are they going to have embedded into their life and into their community in order for them to really thrive and succeed. So it's really taking that approach. So what the nice thing about the project is we put in 29 different projects that affect families with young children with an ask of almost $6 million. Now, what was put in front, or the projects I think I had almost 47 different projects in front of me to compile and pull from. That we kind of sifted through, and some of those projects were funded. They were funded by the, because we don't want to be duplicative in this either. So they were funded already by Maui Strong, and Hawaii Community Foundation, or Maui United Way, or you know, Baby to Baby. There were different organizations that have come in. And then the other thing that I want to talk about that we took into really deep consideration when we looked at projects and what we were doing was how the community was receiving people who are coming in to help. So one of the things early on that we heard is that the FEMAs and the Red Crosses are really not being culturally sensitive to, you know, what we're doing and how we're doing it. And so, you know, it's, sorry, wait, hold on real quick. So anyways, we wanted to take that into consideration so that, you know, we embed or really share the importance of culture in our healing. You know, we heard from, I think it was Kaiulani and the Punanaleos early on, how the land, getting back to the land was part of the healing process that was important too. Folks, you know, so how do we really take these things in and incorporate them into the work that we're going to do? And some of that was identifying some of the good work that's happening across the state, and maybe does that make sense to happen, and in what kind of way in Maui and Maui County. So, you know, just, I mean, you can, I can't even express to imagine or go over all of the projects that we have on board, but it was everything from identifying books. And then getting 3 funders that are either printing the books or purchasing the books that have, you know, that are going to make that meaningful impact. One is a coloring book that just gets folks to get their child to maybe open up and talk about it. You know, when I handed that book to a mom, she was ever so grateful for it, for her 5-year-old. She goes, "Oh my gosh, I'm so worried about him. He's not saying anything. I don't know." But he was the very same child that on the beach, they were in a panic because somebody lit up a cigarette around them. So, you know, you don't know where and how our community is going to be triggered by the different things that they hear, see, and do. You know, I learned a lot about we talk a lot about trauma-informed care and some of the things that we're doing around there. One of the things that I learned in this process is that we also have to talk about the grief cycle, because the same child passing by, when that's another thing, if you ever do get into the impact zone or see the impact zone, prepare yourself for that, because you're going to need some self-healing if you ever do experience that. But, you know, the same child who's passing by a spot and is triggered by something, we don't know if that's the child that was running from the fire at that particular place, or if it's the child that, you know, had experienced it as that was where their family ate at a restaurant every single Sunday, and that was the last time they saw somebody, or they lost a pet there. You know, that child needs to grieve. The other child had a really traumatic experience in there. So really recognizing that when we interact with our families and the children, we're going to see a lot of things that I don't think even our early childhood providers are prepared to see. You know, what do we do when the child is in play and they're creating a traffic jam? Why are they creating the traffic jam? Were they in a traffic jam and then the houses are burning? Or were they, you know, or were they hearing what their family members were talking about? You know, we did have children in the drop-in centers that were pretending their houses were burning down, or the houses and community were burning down. So when our children are put in or at different care places, how do we prepare our care providers? Are our care providers going to know and understand that they may be affected by secondary trauma? You know, how do we help our firefighters and our first responders that were on scene and have littles and haven't seen their littles in weeks on end? What kind of programs and supports can we provide for their, you know, family to just get the support that they're going to need? So all of those things were kind of, well, and by the way, this was a resiliency grant. So a lot of that was top of mind. Some of the other things may not have been top of mind, but have come about. We had KCAA, thanks to them, they have a classroom ready to send to Maui whenever we're ready to get to it, whenever we're ready to understand and know we have a need for it. You know, we have others that said they wanted to donate to certain, I guess I should explain this one also. So in Maui, we have our FEMA and Red Cross supported distribution centers and hubs. And we also have what we've come to collectively name as the family hubs. And the family hubs are taking donations of all kinds and are now getting words out. So I think collectively we are at approximately 18 hubs, 5 of which are the FEMA, Red Cross, and the others are the family hubs. So the community has really come to organize themselves. And some of the family hubs, they'll take some of the things and donations that because of the protocols and whatnot, that the Red Cross and the FEMA may not be able to. And that can be very frustrating for somebody who's trying to be good and donate well. It also creates the conversation in our community that if they're not from our community, they don't understand. I think we need to figure out how do we collaborate together, because both are important. I think there are people that are affected that don't even realize and know what or how they actually are affected. So when I do say, you know, it's our community that experience collective trauma, I do mean that. From every individual to those who want to support and help, to those who have experienced it differently. So let me pause there to see if there is, let me also explain this. The collaboration on the project gave me a good way to work and understand the different projects that are out there. And if it's not funded by this project, perhaps there's another funder that connects with it and wants to fund it. So we took a chance at the $6 million. That was not everything that we could have asked for funding. Some things didn't fit. Some things we needed more information on. Some things were already funded by a request made either to Maui Strong or Maui United Way or a different source. So we really were trying to be cognizant of that and that we had to write this in a weekend, but we really wanted to get early childhood on the radar. The question being asked now is, well, when are we going to put in the childcare in Lahaina? I don't have an answer for that. You know, again, I'm preparing not just for the childcare in Lahaina, but also the Ripple. How do I get them? We don't know where they're going to move. We don't know that, you know, the hotel situation and the food provision, how long is that going to last? You know, do we have the housing capacity to house those that were immediately displaced and those that are going to move into a place that now displaces somebody else? We don't know when the EPA or how the damage assessment will be put forward and what the timeline to that is. We don't know, is it safe for them to return and with what? You know, so we are gearing up to order to mitigate some of the air and water that were the infrastructures that are not in place yet, you know, and that's both for upcountry as well as Lahaina, you know, ordering the air conditioners and the HEPA filters and the air filters so that when we are prepared to. We are talking with DHS to understand. Now, can't always say I agree with Dana, so I appreciate her tolerance with me from time to time because I have an immediate need right now. And, you know, running into those challenges and roadblocks, those of you who know me, I'm like, I don't like those very much, you know, and yet I understand they come from the place of having to ensure the safety. So how do I know what those thoughts are, what those roadblocks are so that we can plan ahead? So that when we have rules or regulations that need to be followed, that we can say, no problem, the childcare providers, they got this, or this community provider, they got this, because we knew what was coming. So we prepped them for it. We figured out a way to address whatever that concern or need was. So having this experience, I never want to do that much in a weekend again, but understanding the projects that are available and having the opportunity to try for it and get early childhood on the radar, where we're not necessarily in the center of things. We're often an afterthought and may miss out on those funding of things. But I told my boss, I have them. If you want to know what the projects are, and you know, when you guys are ready, you let me know. And in the meantime, our community providers, our nonprofits are working really hard to access them, and they're putting things in place. You know, and have the support to do so. You know, everything from a drop-in center to how do we plan for longer? Do we need children's area set up? Do we need children's furniture? Do we need rocking chairs for them to take a break in the family assistance centers or the thing? So there's lots of different ways to hear what's going on. And anyways, so I will pause and see if there are specific questions or if I've talked too much in a circle that I wasn't clear on what we've done, or if somebody's curious about, you know, something, and I'll say it is from my perspective.
Okay, you know, thank you. It's hard to digest it all, and I'm sure it is for you as well. But we really appreciate not only what you've been doing, but just the breadth of all that you have to deal with. It's just extraordinary, particularly the unanswered questions and the unknowns that you have to function through. So let's first of all open it up to any board members who have any comments or questions that they would like to share.
I have a question, Bob. This is Mel. Kaina, are the projects still being determined which ones are going to be? Okay.
Yeah, so right now they are. We will know at the end of this month which ones that particular grant will pick up and fund, or was included in the, but I'm not giving up, because if it wasn't funded under this one, can I find a match? Is there something, you know, that, and others, you know, so there were 29 that we put in for under this. I think I'm up to about 56 or so that are on the radar to take action and get funding for in one way or another.
And I want to really thank Mel, to your point, to your question. It was so impressive to see all of our direct service providers, coming up with these collaborative projects and literally in a day and a half. And being able to say, hey, I've got this, I've got mobile services, I've got mobile clinics. Can we add on some of the other programs and services to those mobile clinics? And then they would form this collaboration and put together a combined proposal and a combined project. So it just was really, really awesome to think about even how do we sequence and support these services, not just in Lahaina and during the recovery, but across our islands. How do we do a better job of sequencing and putting together the pieces so that families receive those programs and services in one way, right? So it's not at all piecemeal. So that was really heartening, and it was pretty incredible to see what people were able to come up with in such a short amount of time.
Thank you, Carrie. Any other comments that people wish to, board members to have comments that they wish to share or observations to make, questions for Katina? I don't see anything in the chat at the moment. We can come back around if board members do. I do want to also open it up for public comment. Katina, that's on our agenda as well. Christina, did you want to share at this point?
Sure, yeah. So I'm Christina Cox, and in addition to serving as the president of KCA Preschools of Hawaii, I also serve as the liaison for the Child Care Business Coalition. We operate preschools on 4 islands, including Kamaina Kids, which she referenced, which has 3 programs now open on that island. And pre-pandemic, we served more than 4,000 children annually. Due to the increased challenges in recruiting qualified teachers, KCA recently made the difficult decision to close our Kailua preschool after 50 years of operation. We were able to reassign the affected teachers to our remaining 4 preschools, which are also struggling to be adequately staffed. When I heard from Kaina that Maui lost 4 preschools and 200 slots, and that they're working to secure new facilities and are in need of furniture and supplies, I knew exactly what we should do with the 4 classrooms worth of furniture and supplies that we now have. I'm also working with the Atherton Family Foundation, who is the lessor for that property, to find a similar organization for them that also cares for your children. KCA will most likely be submitting a request to HCF Maui Strong to support the packing, shipping, and immediate storage of the equipment within the next few months. So I'm hopeful that that will come forth. And also, separate of that, we've enrolled a 2-year-old who showed up at our door in Hawaii High last Friday. They've been given temporary housing relocated from Maui. 2.5-year-old was in the fire in the car. Have a lot of memories about that. So yeah, it's just all hard.
Thank you. I'm sure that I'm sorry to hear about the Atherton preschool, obviously, as you know, and yet you have found a way to repurpose, and that's really helpful on many fronts. So, Kaina, I'm sure that this is something that your community will appreciate as well. Are there any other public comments that people wish to share? Or questions to ask? And, I don't see any other comments or any other people indicating that they wish to, but one of the things that I think I'm hearing, and I want to be sure I'm saying this correctly, is that it's still early and this is a long process and there's still much to figure out. So that people shouldn't stop wanting to be engaged, but they need to seek engagement in a way that not only respects the cultural responsiveness of the community, but just the community in general and what it's capable of handling and the processes that it needs to go through to reach the point where it can receive help and even know maybe what some of that help is. Is that an accurate conclusion?
Yep, very much so. I mean, because like I said, one of the things that I don't even think that people are aware of how they will be affected or when they will be affected by it. And, you know, Christina made a great point. It's not just the Maui community. Our community is dispersed across the state. They're dispersed across, sorry. They're dispersed across, you know, to the mainland. Some have moved. It's gonna be long, and it really is a collective trauma. And I can't express the amount of gratitude I have for the partnerships and the people that, you know, are okay with when we say, hey, that's just give me a moment to figure out how this and when this will be, when we're ready for it. Can you be on standby? And that there's that patience for it, because we're going to need it. And we don't know what we're going to need. So just having that and having that support. I can't express how, I don't know, how meaningful or how important that is for us to keep moving forward, for us to grow. You know, it is, I think, bigger than we all realize, and we don't know when it's going to go. You know, it was great that we needed rocking chairs at one of the centers for moms, and I had some folks to call upon to say, hey, you know, this is the need. Can you meet it? And immediately it's there. You know, or Patch was ordering the filters for the providers, and there's a limit on how many filters they can have sent to one address, so that I had another address that I was able to say they can receive it, you know, so we can get the number of filters that we need. Or that we gave some of the donations collected were, believe it or not, 5-gallon water jugs, and how almost life-changing that was for somebody who had no access to water for them. And then you get these, you know, moments of just genuine gratitude. You know, I mean, we have some bad actors too, and social media plays up to those. So, but we don't want to focus on them. We want to make sure that they are not affecting what the many of our families do need.
No, and I think while our hearts go out to all of you, and we certainly appreciate your efforts too. And I guess I would hope that you would find ways to continue to ask for what's needed. And I know that's not easy, but you're pretty good at it. And coordinating people to help them feel that they're a part of what's doing. And I know you will be straightforward with all of us to say, you know, not right now, please, can you come back later? Because I think we're all willing to hear that in as many ways as you can. I certainly, as long as this board continues to function, would like to invite you to do updates as you're ready for our monthly meetings. We would like to know any ways we can be helpful, and also how to stay out of the way if we're not being helpful, both of which are probably really important. So thank you so much for what you've done, what you continue to do, and for inviting us to be a part of it in the ways we can. We are certainly all thinking of you and your community and want to respect it and support it. So find yourself a rocking chair once in a while and maybe a glass of wine to sit down and take care of you, because I suspect you don't do that very well. All right, thanks so much. We are at our end point, so I'm going to ask Hugo if she'd be willing to wait to the next meeting for the final agenda, which was on the state plan dashboard, if we can put that off to the next meeting. And we will go to round out the meeting for today to talk about the outcomes of the meeting and then close it down. The basic outcomes of today's meeting is that the board has approved the additional budget request for the 2024-2025 budget to support the development of a navigator system and also to support the addition of one FTE to help develop and implement the addition of a pre-plus program on state property other than DOE campuses. We've also approved an initiative for the EOEL to convene a work group to develop a continuous quality improvement system. And we've asked the EOEL to return to the board with their initiative related to the development and implementation of a Hawaiian immersion public pre-K under EOEL auspices. Those are the primary outcomes of today's meeting. We heard an update from Maui. We have a sense of the breadth of the issues, the work that's being done, knowing that support is going to be needed, and inviting the Maui County folks to share with us regularly, keep us informed, and invite us to be supportive in any ways we can. Carrie, did you have anything to help close out the meeting for today?
I did. It's related to how we provide hope and dreams for our youngest keiki, and not just island-wide, but in particular on Maui right now. And it's from Trevor Noah. We tell people to follow their dreams, but you can only dream of what you can imagine. And depending on where you come from, your imagination can be quite limited. Trevor Noah. So how do we make sure that all of our keiki see what is possible and see what's imaginable?
Thank you, Carrie. Everyone take care of themselves. Continue to support Maui in any ways that you can. And we will see you next month. Aloha.